Perform a criminal investigation of Lyndon Johnson. And while the Warren Commission performed a criminal investigation of Lee Harvey Oswald and determined him to be a murderer without a motive, if you take all of these other possible parties who could have killed the president and combined all their motives together, they wouldn't have as many as Lyndon Johnson himself. He had personal motives, he had economic motives, he had political motives. We start with motive. Then from there we go to opportunity. Lyndon Johnson was involved in planning the trip.
It is without question John Conley who entices John F. Kennedy to Texas. Once they get him there, then they're in control of everything. Motorcade routes, the evidence, the Dallas police, everything. It's their land. It's their territory. Lyndon Johnson and his Texas cronies suckered President Kennedy to Texas.
Everything that was involved in this assassination, pre and post, Lyndon Johnson was involved in. The Warren Commission was a politically biased entity created by Lyndon Johnson for the sole purpose of getting him out of another political scandal. This one, of course, the worst of his career. And the reason I say that, if you look back in history, 1963, November 22nd, what happened? The Texans came out and they said it was a lone killing, a lone assassin. And if you look at law, at the killing of a president in 1963, if it was caused by a lone assassin, was only subject to state jurisdiction, not federal. And Texans came out and they said it was a lone killing. If you look at history, and no one is going to deny it on this panel, on the evening of the assassination, the truth of the matter is Lyndon Johnson called people in Dallas, including the Dallas district attorney, and told him to charge Lee Harvey Oswald with being a lone assassin, regardless of whether anything else he could prove.
She makes it clear she always thought he had his own ambiguous agenda, saying he was picked to be vice president primarily for votes in Texas and to undo his mischievous power in the Senate.
If you'd had him up there with that enormous ego and thwarted and bitter, so nobody was happy about it. Everyone was even amazed that he accepted.
Mm-hmm.
I think, well, some other people can tell you about it, going down into his room and everything, and I guess he was drunk.
She says as vice president in the White House, he was barely there.
Jack would say you could never get an opinion out of Lyndon at any cabinet or national security meeting. He'd just say, that he agreed with them, with everyone, or just keep really quiet. So, Lyndon, as vice president, didn't just do anything.
But there's a skill to listening to any oral history and finding the truth.
I mean, Bobby and LBJ had this mortal hatred for one another.
Keep in mind, her brother-in-law, Bobby, is going to mount his own campaign for president. She and Bobby Kennedy trying to make sure Johnson doesn't take credit for President Kennedy's legacy.
But when something really crisis happens, that's when they're going to miss Jack and talking about Lyndon, and people will think I'm bitter, but I'm not so bitter now.
She is also the woman who bore the weight of a nation's grief after the assassination of her husband. At one point, a 3-year-old John Kennedy Jr. is overheard wandering in and talking to the microphone held by historian Arthur Schlesinger.
John, you went to the airport today.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yes.
John, what happened to your father?
So, he's gone to heaven.
He's gone to heaven?
Yeah.
Do you remember him?
Yeah.
What do you remember?
I don't remember anything.
Many people believe that Lyndon B. Johnson was behind the assassination of JFK, especially Jacqueline Kennedy, JFK's wife. Jackie believed that Johnson shouldn't become president, and in the months before JFK's death, they had talked to his brother, Robert Kennedy, about ways to deal with Johnson in 1968. Malcolm Wallace was a longtime friend of Lyndon B. Johnson. On the 6th floor of the Texas Book Depository, Malcolm Wallace's fingerprints were found on one of the cardboard boxes used to support the rifle and hide the shooter. On that 6th floor, Lee Harvey Oswald had a clear shot of Kennedy, and after the shot, was quickly able to hide in the Texas Theater. However, Lee Harvey Oswald had almost nothing to do with the planning of the assassination. It was all LBJ and Wallace. Throughout the years, LBJ had ordered Wallace to do a lot of his dirty work. However, killing the president would be a little bit more complicated. The night before the assassination, LBJ had a dinner party. Madeline Brown, LBJ's girlfriend, recalls the party. She said, Edward Aubrey Clark was the main arranger for the murder. He had arranged the president's murders in many different cities. However, they chose to kill him on their own turf. With all of Lyndon Johnson's connections, it was easy for him to manipulate a handful of people to assassinate Kennedy and never have anyone suspect him for a long time.